Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I am not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we discuss topic, come up with some thoughts, some ideas, sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. Today's discussion, trainers, as you all know, comes from our last discussion. Last time we were discussing whether dog shows help or hurt dogs. And in typical Dog Trainers Connection YouTube forum fashion, we wound up going to the fact that shelters are having a really tough time right now, tougher than they probably have ever had. And we started to discuss what we can do about that and why that's happening. I was doing a little looking, saw that there is millions of dogs that are in shelters yearly. And unfortunately, that seems to be growing. I know that a lot of you were saying that the shelters are absolutely inundated and the people are absolutely inundated. So what I would like to discuss today is what can be done about that. What can help these shelters? What can help the dogs? Because that's what we're really all about. Does anybody want to start today? Go ahead, Steve.
This is a very, as always, complicated topic.
Of course, it's complicated, as we all know.
And I think that everybody would probably have some different, we all care about the bottom line, what's happening with the dogs.
Mhm. Well, you said something there, Steve. Is that what this is all about? The bottom line?
Well, I think, I hate to use the line like follow the money, but, I
Mhm.
feel like that's, one of the lines we have to use now. There's a lot of crazy things, just maybe not crazy, just different. And
Mhm.
so, when I was a little kid, if I needed a screwdriver or a box of nails, I went to the local hardware store. And if I needed a carpet, I'd go to the carpet store. And, if I needed wood, I'd go to the lumber yard. And, now you go to Lowe's or something, or
Mhm.
Home
Sure.
Depot. So this everything became that. Like you go to your doctor. I mean, heck, the doctor used to come to the house when I was a little kid. They don't do that anymore. I mean, what's the matter with you? You're going to just go to your doctor? Or no, well, maybe you got to go to the dermatologist. Maybe you got to go to the cardiologist. Maybe you got to go, and they all seem to be living under one roof, just like the carpet and the lumber and the
Mhm.
hardware. So dogs. We have this giant like complex, it seems, of
Mhm.
how these things are going. It's that everybody seems to be, not everybody really, but there's so many connections. So you go to a shelter, it's like they're getting up here in the Northeast, and dogs are being shipped from everywhere,
Right.
islands, Texas to the Northeast,
Mhm.
down south, up. Um, there's like some phone numbers, it's like it's a weird clandestine thing, the people who are who are running the shelters, they have these like resources. I need puppies because I need visitors, because I need visitors because I need money. I need
Okay.
money to be able to take care of the dogs in the shelter. I'm like, but it just goes around and around. Like
So almost like an underground.
I worry about, it's like there's so many, it's like an endless stream.
Mhm. Yeah, that was something you said last time. This is like they don't stop. They keep coming, I
Keep
believe were your
coming.
exact
And
words.
there were times during the pandemic when the place was empty. No matter how many they brought up, they went straight out.
Mhm.
But now there's the problem with a lot of them are coming back. And my local shelter was, I thought, designed to handle the local community.
Mhm.
If I lost a dog, I thought it would make some kind of sense. If you lose a dog in a certain town, where's the nearest shelter
Sure.
to that town? But it doesn't work that way. the shelters have contracts with different areas, right?
Hmm.
So if you lose a dog in one place and the nearest shelter may be over here, but maybe the contract that that town has is with a shelter miles away. So if somebody finds a dog and calls, call the police, I need a shelter, um, call them. Then you either go there or they'll send a truck or whatever it is, but it's not around the corner. It's based on these contracts.
Hmm.
But what if, like, I bring up 2 dozen dogs from down south because I need adoptable dogs? What happens, like, if I have a big week on lots of strays or owner surrenders that have to come into the shelter? What am I going to say? I don't have room.
Hmm.
I don't have space because I brought up all these dogs from somewhere else in an effort to get them adopted out. And that somewhere else is oftentimes called a kill shelter.
Right.
I'm not quite sure that that's even correct or true half the time. I mean, it's because there's money involved. I mean, I think it's more of almost, in some cases, a war of who's going to get which dogs from these places that seem to be pumping them out. So if
Right.
the shelter wants these puppies, and the shelter in the next town wants the same puppies because they got the same phone number. Who's getting them? I think it's become a little ugly at the bottom.
Hmm.
It's
Sure.
not the beautiful thing that it's supposed to be, right? And it's just I feel like there's a money train, like,
Right.
who's getting paid? If you surrender the dog, litter of puppies, are you getting money because you surrendered them, or does the shelter think, well, if I don't pay them, they're just going to dump them in the river and drown
Right.
them?
Yeah.
What's all? There's so many thoughts, and I
Hmm.
don't know what's at this point. How do you know what's right and real versus, just rhetoric?
Well, and then also there was this whole thing that became more and more about the no-kill shelters, and has that changed things? As you were talking about that, about the difference between the kill and no kill. And I'm not just asking Steve this. If anybody else wants to jump in, they're welcome to. But how much of that has affected the shelters? Is that
Well,
one of the reasons why there are more dogs? Go ahead, Jeff. You.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll bounce around a little bit. This topic can kind of go a few different directions, but
Sure.
first, I'm not like as knee deep in it as I was, like, 8, 9 years ago, right? Since I
Hmm.
moved down here, especially the last few years, I'm still involved, and I still have, all my contacts, and I kind of have a pretty decent pulse of what's going on. It's the worst I've seen
Hmm.
since I've been involved in rescue since 2002, when I first walked into a shelter to volunteer as a dog trainer. Um, it's bad. And
Is that lack of people? Is that too many dogs? Is that both?
people suck all around. All around. Now, Steve was talking about shelters. So if there's at least in the Northeast, I don't know how it works down here. I don't
Hmm.
think they know how it works down here. So,
Okay.
at least up in the Northeast, like, you have a township. The township has animal control,
Right.
or may have animal control services outsourced to a nearby municipality or county, right?
Hmm.
So wherever that facility that runs the animal control out of, that would be the governing authority for for stray and population control and wildlife and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they can't take dogs from out of the area. It's that contractually they can't. I'm not saying they don't. I'm
Yeah.
saying contractually they can't. Like, if like Newark, for instance, Newark is probably animal control for, Caldwell, Bloomfield, Nutley, or whatever. Those all those surrounding towns
The
in New
surrounding
Jersey,
towns and cities. Yeah.
right? So, they can't go take 12 dogs from Puerto Rico,
Hmm.
right? They'll lose all their contracts. And their contracts is what helps them run. Now, from a municipal standpoint, if it's a municipal shelter running under the municipality's budget, they are only going to take that town's dogs. They're not going to
Okay.
take any other dogs, right? They don't have to. Again, they shouldn't.
Right.
I'm saying that,
Right.
so that's kind of how that works, But whether it's a shelter or rescues, they're both facing the same problem. Is they're just inundated.
Hmm.
Shelters have no space. Rescues have no foster homes, or
Hmm.
they have dogs that can only be in a, only pet household type thing.
Mhm.
So now what's happening is now boarding facilities are also inundated with rescue dogs. So you have this trickle effect where it's just a big pile of shit coming downhill real fast, right?
Mhm. Sure.
And historically, prior to the pandemic, if we look at all the problems that were that the rescue community, including shelters, we'll just call it the rescue community, was facing, they're the same. They're just amplified now. And and I've done it myself in the past where I rescued a dog outside of my area.
Mhm.
I probably did it 1 or 2 times over the years. It was kind of like a one-off thing. Nobody would touch the dog, like that kind of thing. Like,
Right.
I remember one time I drove to Pittsburgh in it was a blizzard. I drove from Jersey to Pittsburgh because it was like a young deaf dog. No one would touch this dog. And I'm like, shit. And, maybe because I'm a Steelers fan, I took the ride. I don't know. So like I've done it, but like I didn't make it a habit. And there's a couple of things I see. First and foremost, these rescues right now, I know a lot of really good, solid people,
Sure.
good, solid rescues. There are rescues, they always have litter of puppies.
Mhm.
So I call them retail rescues.
Mhm.
That's really what I call it. I mean, how do you always have and I know rescues that get puppies in, right? But they have pit bulls, Rottweilers, Shepherds,
Right.
like they do adults, dogs with problems, like they rescue, like that's what they do, and they happen to get a litter of puppies every now.
Sure, of course.
There's rescues, they just always seem to have a litter of puppies that
Mhm.
bothers the hell out of me.
Mhm.
There's something off of it. That's a huge red flag. How do you always just have puppies? Okay. If you, and I don't care if you don't rely on adoption donations to run your rescue. That's what donations are for. That's what fundraising is for. If you don't know how to fundraise, don't start friggin' selling dogs to get money.
Mhm.
That's not what you do. You fundraise when you
rescue.
need funds. It's very simple.
Yeah.
That's why 501c3s, right? They can offer tax deductible, the tax deductible angle for people because people are more likely to donate if they could write it off, right? That's why 501c3s, oftentimes will get more money. But I have a problem with all these puppies. And, I mean, I get that you want to help other people in other areas, but if you're always, I mean, the transport's coming from south to north every weekend.
Mm.
And a lot of them are young puppies or like young sub-adults, and we need adoptable dogs. No, how about you make your dogs adoptable?
Mhm.
How about that?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not a trainer. Oh, you know what? Oh my God. There are so many free resources. Like you can't even make the point that they can't afford it, right? And this is not an attack on all rescues. It's just a common theme I'm seeing more and more of,
Sure.
right?
I understand.
So, so that whole geographical thing certainly comes into play. The whole I only adopt puppies, huge red flag, right? And people. I mean, the shit excuses that they just use every day for getting rid of their dogs.
Mhm.
Now, before anyone watching this gets all, whatever, I get it. People die. There are catastrophic life events.
Of course.
I'm not talking about those things, right? Catastrophic life events. People, I mean, it happens. People get sick and, I get it, right? Divorce, not a reason. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit. You're getting divorced. You're getting divorced. You're not getting divorced in 2 weeks. You have 18 months to figure out what the hell you're going to do with your dog.
Sure.
Right? On the average divorce, whatever the hell it is, right? Oh, you're moving? Oh, okay. All right. No problem. Where are you moving to? Where do you think you're moving to? I'll help you find a pet friendly place.
Mhm.
Oh, I found one. I'm moving next week. So now you're reaching out to people,
Mhm.
right? Oh, well, I'm moving. And then I just found out that they won't allow my breed. No, you didn't move to a place that allows you to have your breed.
You didn't find out whether they allowed you to breed.
I mean, and this goes for rescues too. I've been indirectly involved in the placement of some dogs, not pitting rescue dogs, but helping other rescues out. They were adopting pit bulls into communities that didn't allow pit bulls.
Oh, nice.
Well, they didn't, because I told them, look, they can't have pit bulls. And they were like, oh no, John Doe told me they could. I'm like, well, John Doe's an idiot because I just called the community. Because anytime there's a community with an HOA, the first thing I do before I call any references,
Sure.
I call the HOA.
Of course.
I go to the website, all the breed restrictions, right? What else? What other one? Oh, I'm having a baby. All right, so maybe we start preparing the home so your dog's prepared for the baby.
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm due next week.
Yeah.
Really? And now you're looking for a home for your dog?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the excuses, again, with exception, generally speaking, people suck. They're full of shit. They're self-centered, and they don't give a shit about their dogs. I don't care how much they say they love them. Period. So, you know, that's a big problem. The pandemic, perfect example, right? Oh, I want to give a dog a home because I have all this time in my hands. You know, I could really do a wonderful thing. Oh, back to work. Life happens. See ya. Don't need you anymore. Like, come on, pieces of shit.
And that certainly has been one big thing that's happened is the people going back to work, giving the dog back to the shelters.
It's just the one big crock of crap.
All right. One of the things that I was reading today was that, and these were recent articles about the fact that, oh, it's the economy. The economy. I can't afford to keep the dog. That's what people are saying now. So, David, how much of that is that? Is how much of that is the economy? How much of that is, well, you know, things are tough, and you know, I understand what Jeff's saying. I get it. But is there any truth to that?
I would say a grain of salt. I mean, just like what Jeff is saying, you know, there might be a few cases on, you know, that's an exception to the rule, but by and large, everyone has a friggin' excuse. They really do. There's always a friend, a family member, somebody they can reach out to, and leaving a shelter or rescue as a last resort to just, you know, get rid of the dog. But, you know, again, pre-pandemic, changing subject slightly, getting to this no-kill shelter thing, and I can only speak for the one that I represented, but I'm guessing that a lot of other municipal no-kill shelters are very similar. They would not advertise we're not a no-kill shelter for obvious reasons. You say we're no, you know, or say that we are a kill shelter. I'm sorry. They were actually killing dogs on occasion. I'm going to tell you why in a second. But if they were to say we are a kill shelter, who's going to be going there to look for a dog, right? They're going to be like, oh, these people are terrible. I'm not going to go get the dog from them. Yes. But with that said, what they would do with another shelter that was not a municipal shelter, I'm not going to name names, what they would do, the shelter I represented, they would train the dogs. They knew their stuff. They would train the dogs the best they could. So if they got a dog in that was supposedly aggressive, and some were, they would work like crazy to get that dog reliable to where they can go to a home. And if it's still aggressive, depending upon the kind of aggression, the level of aggression, maybe it's something like, hey, you can have this dog under these circumstances. The dog's gonna be aggressive, so you have to manage the dog in this way. Maybe they're aggressive towards people, so keep them away from other people, or for small children or other dogs. So you manage the situation. If it's so much in so many different angles, then and they've tried everything. They've had different trainers work with them. It's not just one or two trainers. If this trainer doesn't work with them, doesn't get the dog up and going, they'll get another trainer in there. They'll do whatever they can to hold that dog. If they can't, unfortunately, as a last resort, they felt it's more humane to just let the dog down rather than just letting the dog just wilt away in a cage. Sure. You know, for the rest of its life, just being miserable. But they will work with the dog. Whereas other shelters, they'll kill the dog right off the bat. They don't even bother working with it. And a lot of times we would get dogs that rather than this way they could say they're a no-kill shelter. So we're not going to kill them, so we'll give them to you to kill. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. Yeah. Because they can't work with them, and we'll try to work with the dogs. So I think that's a little bit of BS. But as far as like what shelters can do, which what we did back pre-pandemic and which they should be doing today, I think, is just promote the heck out of their shelter. There's a lot of people in a local area within any given shelter usually that are willing to volunteer, right? And so if they promote and they advertise, hey, we were looking for volunteers, and also like what Jeff was saying, they would go to different retail outlets, what have you, and do some kind of a fundraiser, and that kind of a thing to get money for the shelter. All that kind of stuff is very important,
I just wanted to ask why Why do you think they're not doing that as much? I mean, I know during the pandemic, shortage of staff, that kind of thing, but why wouldn't the shelters have the money to promote or be able to do that? Is it just because
Well, shelters can't accept donations. They can't
Okay.
accept monetary donations because they're a public service. So like usually most shelters will have they'll have a nonprofit association, and that nonprofit will solicit donations to support the shelter's day-to-day supplies and stuff like that.
I really meant what David was saying about getting people to come in and volunteer
Oh,
to
I
help
got
with
you.
the walking, the
Oh, okay.
training,
Sorry, my bad.
the doing that kind of outreach.
Right. Yeah, hard to
and-
say. I
and-
mean, right now with the I think it was probably maybe a little easier pre-pandemic, but now,
Right.
excuse or no excuse, some of these people are out of work, what have you. And then getting to where it's a combination of a snowball effect. Now all these shelters are inundated with all these dogs, and they have to work on training them. They're
and there's
short
too-
staffed.
And there are
So
too
if they're
many
short-staffed,
dogs.
where they put their priority, they work with a dog, or they try to promote. If they try to promote too much about the shelter, then they, if they promote in terms of trying to get people to come in to get the dogs, that's another thing. Then that should be done. But
Right.
maybe the lack of funds and things like that.
Or, I remember, and I'm just going to bring this up because I remember, Steve, when I studied with you and we went to the local shelter, it was a very political, those jobs and how it was run and what they agreed to let you do and us to work with as your students. It was so political and at times didn't seem to be in the best interest of the dogs.
That's very true. The other thing too, what would happen, and it even happened, I didn't hear it happen at our place, but you still had to follow those kind of guidelines. But I have read where some people are saying, hey, that are volunteering, or even some people that actually work for the shelter and get paid from the shelter or rescue group will say, listen, this shelter or rescue group is doing this, and this. They're not exercising the dogs sufficiently. They're giving them enrichment. Well, what's that enrichment mean? Is that just food and toys and no exercise, or what form of enrichment, et cetera, et cetera? And they're speaking out to the media, and then management is getting wind of this and saying, hey, listen, you got to put this through us or through the board or whatever before you go start,
Or you're
stealing off your mouth.
They could be
so
fired.
Sorry, see you later. And then they're going to get rid of these people that they're already short-staffed to begin with.
Well, and David, that brings me to what I was thinking about, which is, Steve was talking about what it was like when he was young, and we all were younger at a certain point. And, shelters were different. They
sure
weren't
were.
really thought of as this big business and this and that. And so I wonder if there isn't some sort of a stigma against the shelters from people. I wonder if people are feeling like, nah, I don't really want to have anything to do with that, because of what you were saying about that, they wind up working in the shelter, and then the shelter has people who say, well, this is that. And, so I wonder how much that is affecting things.
But the union.
I'm sorry?
Unions.
Unions.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, here, the kennel staff is unionized. So that means there are tasks that you can do and tasks that you can't. Union, I mean, it really is complicated. And if you get a lot of volunteers coming into a shelter that's got a system and a staff that's trained to do certain things, that the first thing volunteers want to do is take the dogs out. Maybe the
Sure.
Really, most volunteer jobs when it comes to shelter work is cleaning. It's cleaning. These people want to get with the animals right away. They may not have a skill set to be around any animals. Their heart's in the right place, but you can't let them get with the animals because they don't know what the heck they're doing. They're going to get themselves hurt, which is just unacceptable. It's a cleaning job. a cleaning job. People don't sign up to go work in the shelter to clean.
Sure.
I'm not getting paid. I'm not going to clean. If you're going to go volunteer in a shelter, you better get with what the job really is, what you're allowed to do, and you got to be okay with that, or you're just making it difficult, more difficult, not less. So, it just, again, it's just more complicated.
No, that's very true. Like when I started the shelter I was at, it's been got 4 or 5 years since I was volunteering. But before I could even volunteer, I was like an adoption advisor. So I couldn't just go out and start spewing whatever I, thought or read about them. We had a whole class or two, or whatever, I can't remember, it's been a while, about, what we say. There was markings on the door about each dog, the name of the dog that named them, how old they think the dog is, what the dog is like, et cetera, and a protocol as to what kind of questions we should be asking potential adopters, adoptees, and things like that, so we can find them the right home. And then if you're interested in handling dogs and taking them for walks, they had a trail nearby, then you had to take a handling class, which was, I don't know, 6 weeks or whatever it was. So you're not going to become a professional dog trainer per se, but you're getting some basic skill sets where you walk the dogs in there out in the trail. And then from there, I think there might have been even a little extra class where you learn how to, not just walking. And there was a third class where, okay, you want to handle the dogs? Okay, walking is one thing that you want to handle. So now we'll teach you some, like, sit, stay down, come, that kind of thing. Some, find treats underneath a box and things like that. And that we could do outside. That whole like little setup out there where they had little ramps and things like that. Or depending on the weather, then we go inside and do the same kind of a thing.
So they really trained the staff.
Oh yeah, they had a whole separate area too. They had a little setup, like a little living room, a little, like a real TV that was like an old one that someone donated.
So,
I'm not.
so dogs could get used to.
If someone gave it, whatever,
Yeah.
and put a little couch in there and things like that, so they can kind of acclimate the dog to home life, that kind of thing.
Very
And
cool.
I think that's one thing that shelters anyway usually lack is some kind of orientation protocol, or I used to do it up in Jersey too for a bunch of shelters. We would do like a volunteer. There would be volunteer handouts. Then we would do volunteer workshops. And it's funny, the first one, you got 25 people, you got 30 people, right? The next week, you got 5,
Yeah, it dwindles down.
6, because they realize, oh, I have to work.
I have to
Like,
work. Yes. And
no,
that's one of the things I was thinking about. Yeah.
The wonderful selfless person that you are that decided to go give freely of your time at the shelter. Oh, you're not going to shovel shit, so now you don't want to come. So who are you doing this for? Are you doing this for the dogs, or are you doing this to give yourself a pat on the back, right? Or, so I think the training obviously is great for not just the dog safety, but the people safety, and it weeds out a lot of crap, right? And then a lot of shelters, at least the ones when I was up in Jersey, you have a lot of court-appointed people there doing their community service there. And that's, and that's not, I'm not knocking them. It's the same exact thing. It's hit or miss. You get some who, even though they're there court-appointed, they're like all in. They're like,
loving
oh my
it.
God, this is wonderful. Like they don't care. They got shit all over them. They don't care. And then you got others that they're just there to get their hours, right?
Yep.
So that's I don't think that contributes to the state of rescue today. I think that's going to be a perpetual problem.
Yes.
Just because people are perpetual problems. So,
Yeah, another thing, this is not to jump down, but is that hits me right now is we would get, even though you're supposed to be relinquishing a dog within that town or whatever town you're in, at least with this shelter, and I'm sure all municipal shelters are that way. Initially, someone might go there, not know, and say, "Oh, I'm just, my dog is this dog. I'm getting rid of it, whatever the reason." Where do you live? Oh, you live in that town. Oh, sorry, you'd have to go to this shelter. Well, people get smart and they realize this. So they come in. Oh, where? What town you in? Oh no, I found it on the street. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was their own friggin' dog. And they say, "I'm just over here." Or sometimes they would get a cat or a dog because they were, they also took cats in, and they would just leave it there overnight. Not say a word, and people just go, and then some of the staff would show up in the morning and see the cat or a dog in a cage. What are we gonna do? Leave it there? Obviously not. So
if you're lucky, it was in a cage.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're
that's
tied
true
up.
too. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, boy, I'm telling you, this is just, and I remember, Steve, on your final exam, you asked all your students to write an essay on solving the shelter problem and how you would run them. And I know I said you should be in charge of the whole thing. That was one of the things.
I asked every class, every vet tech class, you know, every
Oh, you continued that. Oh, boy.
yeah, because I thought it's going to come out. You know, one of these kids
Yes.
is going to have some genius idea one day. You know, it's like
Mm,
come
But
out
if
of you know.
follow the money, that's
Yep.
what you started out saying. I think if that aspect was controlled in some way or legislated or something, then
So look at your role models though, Bonnie, when it comes to money, right? PETA, they're a bunch of terrorists. They give two shits. They euthanize the majority of the animals they save,
yes.
right? The ASPCA has like what, like their marketing budget is in the millions probably, right? I mean, so how could you spend millions of dollars on advertising if you care for the animals?
Mhm.
Why would you waste on, and it's their advertising is about send us $14 a month and you'll get a t-shirt. And like, I mean, I think it's great if that money is put to good use, but
Sure.
the big conglomerates, I don't trust them. And
Yeah.
I feel sorry for anyone. If anyone's watching this, if you're sending your money to PETA or the ASPCA or even HSUS, they're starting to teeter on that. I won't use the word. Anyway, don't send your money there. Go find a local rescue. Go to your local shelter, right? Because that's where it's needed. That's where it's going directly to the animals. And speaking of money, Steve, you were talking about the economy earlier. And you know, I agree with Dave, right? There's exceptions, especially the past 10 months or so. It's been really hard on a lot of people, like really hard. And I like, again, those exceptions are not the rule. They are literally exceptions. The people who can't afford their dog anymore, right? Look at how they live. Okay. Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, beer, wine, cigarettes, going out to eat a couple of times a week. Don't tell me you don't have $40 for a bag of food. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Most of them are they're just excuses, and people don't care.
Okay.
And they're not accountable because you know why? First of all, you know,
right, accountability.
I'm about to test, right? So you can't drive a car if you don't read you got to get a permit. How do you get the permit? They give you the friggin' book. You get in the book, you got to learn about, you know, if you this line and the broken line and this light and you can make a right of it. Listen, you got to learn the rules of the road and then you take a test. It might be inconvenient, but you're going to go to motor vehicle and you're going to take a test and you're going to pass. So if you know, I'm famous for asking, you know, so if your dog blows a knee, how much does it cost to fix the knee? Because I don't want you surrendering the dog that you love because the dog was running and you know blew an ACL and now you need a surgery. How much do you think that surgery is going to cost? And then they hopefully they come up with a reasonable number, but they don't. They say I don't know. I mean, and you can make it a lot simpler and say, what do you think it costs to feed this type of dog for a year? How much routine medical care for this, you know, per year? Oh, then let's get to problem behavior. You got a large breed dog, the dog tours, you know, you got gastric problems, you need an emergency surgery, how much? You know, the knee, orthopedic procedure, God forbid your dog gets hit by a car, you know, big stuff. How much? Well, when you start talking to them about the many thousands of dollars it could cost, then some people would be, if they know they can't afford it, then maybe they'll leave the dog behind and not get into that situation. Or the better person will get insurance so that they can, you know, they're prepared for the unknown in the future. But at least they know going in, this is what it takes. How long can a leash be in my town if I'm walking my dog? You know, 6 feet long, that's what you're allowed. You know, there are rules. If you know the rules and you know about the expenses, and these people are not educated. They go by, there's a puppy, I wanted a puppy. I always wanted a puppy. All this stuff. It's like, no. First you need to know if you're prepared. You know, can you have one? Yeah, well, I guess these days you can just buy a puppy, you know, you can go to the shelter and adopt one, or, you know, but it's way beyond that. Are you really prepared, financially speaking? if there is a problem, or even
Right.
if not, are you prepared?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
takes to raise it. What about the socialization thing and all that? Do you realize you got to take your dog for a walk? You know, you got to put a leash and go for a walk. Not just for the dog to run, but dogs like to sniff and see and be and all that stuff. You know what I mean? That works them out. I mean, no, no, you know, you don't have time. Then what'd you get the dog for? Get a,
Mhm.
you know, guppies don't need socialization. You can just
Yeah.
get some
That's
you know, if you're going to do the dog thing, know what dog's needs are, be
Mhm.
prepared to fulfill those needs, understand the financial obligation, the connection, you know, all these things. That means you got to take a test. And if you get a car, all right, so you took the test, right? You took the driver's test, you passed. Now you've got to get a car. Well, do you just buy a car? Well, you can't buy a car if you don't have insurance, right? You can't even buy a car without insurance because,
mm,
Mhm.
right, got to have insurance. That costs money. If there's a car accident, you got an insurance company helping you out if God forbid.
Mhm.
What if your dog bites another dog? You know, really chews them up, and you know, there's medical expenses on the other side. Liability.
Mhm.
You have a dog, there is some liability involved, right? Maybe you should have, not only should you have to pass the test, but before you really get the dog, maybe you got to have insurance. Show
Mhm.
me the insurance that you have to cover your dog when you get one.
Yep.
Not get the dog, then consider whether or not you should have it. You should have it. And if you dump the dog, this is where I really like the microchip. Your dog's going to be microchipped. If you decide I can't keep him, I don't want him anymore, and the shelter won't take him, and you don't want to drown him, so you just open the door and you let him run out. If I find your dog in the street, I scanned him, and you didn't call the police like as if you would if your car was stolen, right? We're going to get,
mm,
you know, how much does it cost now the dog's in the shelter? How much does this owner, this irresponsible owner who opened the door and let their dog out to potentially get killed, have to pay every single day until
Mhm.
the shelter finds a home for that dog?
Mhm.
mhm.
Why should the money have to all come from the shelter? It needs to come from the asshole who doesn't take care of the dog in the first place.
Mm.
Have to pay. You don't just give it like this. I can't have him anymore. Here,
Yeah.
your responsibility fully. No,
Yeah.
no, no. It was your responsibility. You took it on yourself, right? And if you try to absolve yourself of that, the dog's chipped. I will find you. So it's like the deadbeat dads.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. You know, do animals not deserve that? I think they deserve that.
Yeah.
Go
I
get
would fully agree.
There needs to
Me
be
as
a
well.
way
Yep.
to the people who don't pay attention. The people who keep bringing puppies in so that we can keep getting puppies, like Jeff says, that ain't right. You're going to bring in puppies? I'm going to pay you? Are you kidding me? Pay me.
Mhm.
Well, and we didn't talk about this, but I shouldn't say a lot. There is some thought out there that some rescues are actually getting puppies from breeders,
Mhm. Yes.
right? So now that's a double whammy. First of all, rescues should be ashamed of themselves, right? And I mean, the breeder just to sell a group of puppies to a rescue, and I'm not going to get into breeding. Obviously, you guys kind of know how I feel about most breeding programs. They're crap and just out for money and don't give a crap about the dog's genetics or anything like that. They're
Mhm.
few and far between nowadays, unfortunately. But you gotta look at that too as far as the contributing factor. Like we started, follow the money, right?
Yep.
That's
And I think that that's probably where we should stop, because we kind of went in a circle, but we got quite a few points along the way. This is a discussion that went a little longer than we would have ordinarily, but I think it was important to do so. I think we discussed a lot of interesting things. I'm not sure if we came up with any answers today, but we definitely raised a lot of questions and raised a lot of thoughtful discussion points as well. So with that, trainers, I would like to thank you all for being here. I would like to thank everybody for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, and please like us on Facebook. And we will see you next time. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye-bye now.
Adopt, don't shop.
Here, here.